there, I'm Chief Meteorologist Trevor Birchett with ABC 24 here in Memphis, hopping on ABC 24 Plus and also on our Facebook page. If you are watching on Facebook, be sure to download that ABC 24 Plus app as well. That's our app for your smart TVs, Roku, Fire TV, Apple TV. You can watch us right there on your smart TV, even without cable or satellite. But I did want to hop on here for a little bit and talk about the wild stuff we saw in the sky last night. We had a very rare appearance of the northern lights all the way down south here in Memphis and the Mid-South. Even further south than that, we saw those northern lights. So I wanted to talk a little bit about what they are, why they happened, why they are this far south, what they mean, and when you could see them again, because this is a little unusual for us. We do not see this a lot, so a lot of people have questions. Now, I will tell you, I'm not a space expert. I'm not an astronomer. I don't do astrology. I don't do anything like that with space. I try my best to stick to weather, but I guess I'm kind of the de facto expert on space weather as well. So I've been doing a lot of research today and getting as much information put together as possible on the northern lights and then to pass along to you. So hopefully what I'm explaining here will make some sense and will help you understand why what happened. Now, I want to start out by just looking at some photos if you missed them. Now, I want to tell you as well, your phone's camera picks these up a lot better sometimes than your naked eye does. I was able to see them with my naked eye. I went in downtown Memphis on the river and I could see that faint pink glow. But when I took a picture, it definitely looked a lot brighter. And that is because your phone can do what's called a long exposure mode. If you've ever been taking a picture at night, it does that 3, 2, 1 thing that's actually kind of annoying to most of us. But what that's doing is it's collecting a lot of light. So the whole time it's counting, it's taking in more and more light. So it actually makes things appear brighter than they actually are, which is good for these kind of photos and good if you're taking photos at night. We've been using that kind of long exposure photography for years, decades even, to get good pictures of what's going on in the night sky. And that's how we got some of these pictures. Now, again, this was visible to a lot of us. This wasn't just something you could see on your phone, but it definitely appeared brighter on your phone. This is from along the Mississippi River. Our weather watcher, Caitlin, sent us this. Now, I don't have an exact location of where on the river this was, but you see the reds up top and then those regular greens on the bottom. A lot of us, when we think about northern lights, we think about them being green. Some of us were a little confused that they were pink and red. We'll explain why that was here in a second, but an incredible view from Caitlin there. And it was kind of the same thing from Rochelle. You see the greens on the bottom transitioning to that red on the top. And this had more of that streaky appearance that we see way up north with the northern lights. Again, very rare to see them this far south. And then this was from Matt at McKellar Lake, so right down the road here in Memphis. And again, kind of the same thing. You see the green on the bottom and then transitioning to that red up on the top. Before the UFO conspiracies come in, I believe that's just an airplane probably circling into the Memphis airport. They make that flight path over McKellar Lake to come in. So no conspiracies here. But again, just an incredible view of those northern lights from last night. I do want to invite you, if you have photos or even some videos to share with us, I got a couple of videos. You can share those with us on the ABC 24 Weather Watchers Facebook page. So go on Facebook and search up ABC 24 Memphis Weather Watchers. That will take you to our page. You can share photos and videos there. You can also text them to us. Write this number down, 901-321-7520. Now, that's not a call-in number. You can't call and complain when I get the weather wrong, but that is a text line, and you can send your weather photos and videos there. So again, 901-321-7520. We would love to see your photos of the northern lights or whatever weather is going on. So I want to talk a little bit about what the northern lights are, why they happen, and why they happened this far south. Well, we got to look all the way over to the sun, right? And the sun is constantly emitting solar flares, mass ejections, all that energy, that plasma from within the sun is just constantly emitting. But there are sometimes bigger emissions, flares or ejections where it just kind of spits out all of this magnetic energy at once. Now, a lot of times, space is pretty big. the sun shoots this out and it doesn't really hit us because the Earth has to be in a very particular spot to get hit by that solar flare. But it's been happening a lot more recently because we are in what's called a solar maximum. The sun is on an 11-year cycle. It gets a little less active and then it gets a little more active. We are at the most active period that the sun has right now. That's why this is a solar maximum. So those flares and ejections are a little more common and they're a little stronger. So in that chance that the Earth is just in the right spot to get hit by one of those flares, it's a little bit stronger and they can appear a little further south. Well, what happens is all of that energy that the sun spits out is hurling right toward Earth. And we have this amazing atmosphere, this amazing field around us that blocks a lot of that stuff. If we didn't have our atmosphere and this magnetic field, we'd be in real trouble. These flares would really probably be the end of us. But we have this atmosphere, this protection around us, that when the sun's energy, these flares or ejections or whatever, hit our atmosphere, they kind of interact with our atmosphere before they can get to us down on the surface. So what you're actually seeing is all that energy from the sun is reacting with the upper levels of the atmosphere, basically blocking the energy from getting to us. So the northern lights are actually a really good thing because it shows us that our atmosphere is doing its job. It's blocking the energy from getting down here. But that's what's creating that light up in the atmosphere, those northern lights. As you have that ejection or flare from the sun, our atmosphere is kind of protecting us. The magnetic field is protecting us, and you're seeing that energy kind of react with that. That's what creates the light. Now, this is rare in Memphis. This does not happen every day. A lot of people are taking expensive vacations. I had some poor person in my Facebook comments that had just paid for a trip to Iceland to see the northern lights. That was on their bucket list, and they got to see them at home last night. Still going to be a fun trip, I'm sure, but it is very rare to see them this far south. Now, we did see them last year, if you remember, back in October. We saw them in 2024. Again, we're at a solar maximum, so northern lights are a little more common. That's why we saw them last year. We also saw them back in 2011 in Memphis. So it's not unusual. It's not unheard of for this to happen, but it is a little rare, and it really only happens in those solar maximums. And that's why it's, kind of once a decade we get a little bout where we have the chance to see some of those northern lights. It's just such a strong flare that our magnetic field is protecting us so much we can see the light all the way down here. Now, I actually wanted to pull up an interesting article that I found, and this is from way back in the 1800s. We had an incredible geomagnetic storm back in the 1800s. By the way, they call the geomagnetic storm when the sun's energy is hitting the Earth's magnetic field. That's a geomagnetic storm. We had the most powerful one of those on record was back in the 1800s, actually back in 1859. And it's called the Carrington event, named after the man that first recognized the solar flare, that this was going to happen. But it was by far the most powerful geomagnetic storm on record. I'll take this full screen just so you can read it a little better. This is from the Memphis Daily Appeal newspaper, which obviously does not exist anymore. This was on Saturday, September the 3rd, 1859. And this was an article about the northern lights being seen in Memphis. I'm going to read this to you. I know it might be a little blurry, especially if it's on your phone. On Thursday night last, about 12 o'clock, the heavens were suddenly lit up as with a half-dozen moons. The cry of fire was heard on every street, and the fire bells of the city were rung, arousing our whole population. So the northern lights were actually so bright that night in Memphis that they're saying it was 6 moons bright, and it was bright enough that they thought the city was on fire, so they were ringing the fire bells. Old nature had only lit up its own chandelier in order, as it might be, to reveal the wickedness going on at the dead hour of that night. Have to love newspaper writing back in the day. And then it's quoted as someone says, it's an aurora borealis, which of course is another name for the northern lights. And it was one of the most brilliant ever witnessed at this latitude. Of course, that meaning this far south, and one which will not be probably witnessed in an age or a lifetime hereafter, which is true. Those kind of events that we saw in the 1800s, again, they call it the Carrington event. incredibly rare to see that strong of a geomagnetic storm happen. The one that we saw last night pales in comparison to this event back in the 1800s. And the wild thing is, if this happened today, we would be in a world of trouble, because these geomagnetic storms, when they are very strong, can actually impact electrical grids, satellites, GPS, things like that. Now, that is very rare. It is very, very rare to have a solar storm or a geomagnetic storm that strong that it impacts power grids. I think the last one was back in the 1980s. And of course, the one last night didn't have any impact on any of our satellites or power grids or anything like that. But if one this strong, where the sun is lit up with half a dozen moons, as the newspaper wrote back in 1859, we would probably see some impacts to the power grids and to the satellites. Now, again, it's very rare. This was in the 1800s, so who knows when this would happen again. But the ones we're seeing right now, nowhere near that strong. So nothing to be worried about. You don't need to stock up on water and expect the power to be out or anything like that. But it is possible with those really, really, really strong, once every other lifetime solar storms. Again, the one we're seeing right now, not nearly that strong. So I found this cool explainer here. I just thought I'd show you a little bit if you're a nerd like me and maybe want a visual as opposed to me just talking about it. So here's the Earth's magnetic field. It extends out in both directions. It's less at the poles, so we have less of the magnetic field at the poles. So what happens is when the sun lets out those flares or lets out those mass ejections, the magnetic field blocks it, and it actually can only enter to the magnetic pole, onto our North Pole and South Pole. So it blocks a direct impact from the solar flare. So it gets kind of deflected around, and that's why it enters at the poles. That's why it's most likely to see the northern lights at the North Pole or South Pole. But when they're strong enough, those lights can still extend a lot further south. And that's just what's happening is when the energy from the sun is colliding with all of our gases in our atmosphere. So we have a lot of gas in our atmosphere, and when those electrons, those bits of energy from the sun are colliding with it, it creates energy and it lights up the sky. Again, that's a good sign. It means our atmosphere is working and it's protecting us from the worst of that solar flare. But again, they can be different colors, and this is what I was talking about earlier. When the auroras are really high in the sky, they're typically red. And then they go down to maybe a little bit of blue and then the green, which is what we're typically used to. So the higher up the auroras are in the sky, the more red they appear. The lower you go, the more green they appear. So that is why a lot of the ones we saw last night were more red. They were just a little higher up in the sky. Of course, we're this far south, we're looking way up north, so they have to be really high in the sky, really, for us to see them this far south. Now, this is a measure of the geomagnetic storm activity. And I wanted to compare it to last night. This was Tuesday night at 9 p.m. We had extreme geomagnetic storm activity. That's why we saw the northern lights. That has obviously come down this morning. But we actually have another flare coming in this afternoon. The one last night was actually two flares kind of in one that hit Earth, and that's why we had that extreme flare up. We have another one coming behind those two, and it's expected to impact Earth this afternoon, Wednesday, 2 or 3 p.m. local time here in Memphis. So, of course, we're going to miss most of it because it's going to be in the middle of the day. So the worst of that flare is going to be hitting during the daytime, so we're not going to probably get an extreme show of the northern lights, but it does look like at least some of that storm will be going on at sunset tonight. It doesn't look like it's going to be as strong as last night. By the time the sun sets, it'll start to be waning down by the time the sun sets. But there is at least a chance to see some northern lights activity late tonight. The earlier you can get, the better, because the storm is going to be decreasing in intensity. The worst of that storm is going to be about 3 p.m., and then it's going to go down after that. So the closer you can get to right when the sun goes down, you're going to have the best view to see the northern lights. I still think last night was probably our best show, but these are honestly really hard to predict. And again, like I said, not my forte. So we'll see how tonight plays out. They can sometimes surprise us. I think last night was a little bit of a surprise to most people. So again, it's still looking like as far south as Memphis, we can see the aurora on the horizon, those northern lights. And again, even if you can't see it with your naked eye, try pointing your phone camera and taking the picture with that exposure mode on, because it might be able to pick up a little extra light you might be able to see those pinks on the horizon just a little bit better. Thankfully, skies are clear tonight, so I would try to go out by 6 or 7 p.m., look up on the horizon and see if you can see them. It is going to be a little chilly, though, so grab a jacket. Now, I'm not going to let you go without a check of your forecast. Obviously, that was more about the northern lights, but I do want to get you an update on your weather forecast, of course. We are going to be very nice tonight. Clear sky, again, 6 or 7 p.m. Try to view the horizon, the northern horizon, see if you can see those northern lights. Tomorrow looks great, 71 with some sunshine, 75 and sunny on Friday. Temperatures continue to warm up. Mid-70s this weekend, beautiful sunshine Saturday and Sunday. We'll get to 77 on Saturday, 72 Sunday. It looks like our pattern might switch a little bit next week, and that could reintroduce some rain chances Tuesday into Wednesday, a chance of some showers. Still trying to nail down the exact timing on that. That could either be one day or the other, but it looks like at least at some point next week we could see some rain. That's going to drop us back down to the 60s. But again, a very rare appearance of those northern lights last night, Tuesday night here in Memphis in the Mid-South. Thank you all for sharing your photos. Keep them coming in. We would love to see more of those. And again, we have at least the chance to see them again tonight. Right after sunset, 6 or 7 p.m., go out on the horizon and take a look. You just might see that faint pink glow off in the northern sky. For now, I'm Chief Meteorologist Trevor Birchett. Good luck looking tonight. Let us know if you see anything. We'll see you back here tomorrow with another check of your forecast.